every individual that's here is here of their own accord. And you need to allow everyone around you to be just that, to be themselves and what they came to be. And that includes parenting. That includes your children. So you set boundaries. You set boundaries for yourself, for your life, for your household, and then you just move accordingly.
What's going on, millionaires? It's your guy, Kai Speaks, and we are back for another episode of the $1 Million Mind Podcast. First of all, I got to thank y'all for the patience, right? We went on a little hiatus for a couple months, and we've been back with a couple episodes now, and y'all been showing out, showing love, and just still tapping in with us every single Monday for a new episode. We got those clips coming for y'all on Fridays. And soon I want to start doing some lives, but I'm just teasing y'all for right now. Let's get into today's conversation because I'm really excited for it all, right? Y'all have known me for the last 4 years, and we've talked about mindset, systems, but mostly that mindset, right? How you can tap into your potential, how you can tap into your truest self, how you can leverage your communities and your support system to really be able to find peace and balance. And we have two lovely ladies in the building that are going to help you find a new you. That's right. We have life coaches Kay and Rhea in the building, two parts of a new you coaching company. It's a pleasure to have y'all.
It is a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Yes.
So go ahead and tell our audience a little bit about who you are and how you got your start and really how you came to be in the seat that you're in right now. No, and actually, I would like to touch on that, right? Because I think that's very important, right? The fact that you are a mother and daughter duo, and not only that, you have this special dynamic to where you play to each other's strengths as well, right? You know, one being very systems oriented and the other being very mindset oriented, and it comes together pretty much perfectly. You know, just like the significance of the relationship of a mother and daughter, right? You know, being able to play to each other's strengths and being able to, you know, lean in, you know, in moments of weakness and lean in to connect. You're doing the same thing from life and you're bringing it into your business to connect it all with your clients and walking them through this amazing journey of growing into themselves. So one, I do love that dynamic, and I'm glad that we were able to touch on that because I think our audience listening, we have a lot of parents, we have parents to be, we have, you know, sons, daughters that are watching this who would dream to be able to have a relationship as organic to be able to run a business with parents, with a significant other, and just quite frankly, that's not the realization or the reality for a lot of people. So I think that's a beautiful thing. So how did that start, right? How did that relationship, of course, the relationship of mother-daughter has been always been a thing, but the relationship of now co-founder and business partner, how did that start?
Well, my mother started to, I was in high school and she started to really just work on herself. Like it started with her own personal development. Getting into, and she'll probably touch on that a little bit, but me watching that from my perspective, me watching her make a decision on changing her mindset and watching her life change from there, watching her income change, her body change, her health change, watching all that, her mood improve, just watching her become, not that she wasn't happy before, but happy unconditionally, and watching that transition for me opened my eyes to what was possible. And then from there, she was on her fitness journey, so I started my fitness journey. And we were on this journey together, and we naturally started to coach together as well. Because I think on both ends, I'm a weight gainer, she's a weight, loser. So on both ends, we were being asked, what are you doing, da-da-da. So we started working together on that front. And then...
And when you say weight gainer, weight loser, what does that look like?
Well, for me,
like you're saying naturally?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I went from like 97 pounds to 150 or something like that. So
intentionally.
Intentionally.
Okay, intentionally.
It wasn't.
I thought you were saying like naturally, like if we were to do nothing but, a certain thing. It was like I naturally gain weight and you naturally lose weight.
Oh no, we were
she
intentionally
on
you
a
were
fitness
50
journey.
pounds.
in your
Yes, I
journey.
was
You were
looking
trying to gain, you were
weight,
trying to
yes.
lose. Okay, now I understand. Thanks.
I was pre-diabetic, needed
Yes.
to lower my A1C.
Okay, got it. Thanks for the clarity.
Yes. So we were on that journey together. People started to ask us, "What are you doing?" So we decided to start coaching together, and then from there, I think the transition into life coaching also happened very naturally. Like we were both really tapping into the mindset of our clients. So when 2020 came, we decided to sit down, get certified as life coaches, and see what that looked like for us. And now we're here.
And you mentioned that one thing you really enjoyed was the process of seeing your mom Ree go through her mindset journey. You know, the change of money, how her body changed, and her mindset shifted. What did that journey look like? If you could give our audience that context, like what was the point that you were in before the shift, and what were some of the major things that you yourself witnessed? Because of course her lens is different than yours of that change and that shift.
So it happened when I was actually in the worst phase, or one of the worst phases of my life, I'll say. It came at a time where I was laid off, didn't have transportation, didn't have a strong support system, was coming out of a 10-year relationship, which included being engaged, and that relationship carried a lot of toxicity and a lot of trauma. And during all of this, I discovered the law of attraction. And with discovering that, something just clicked inside of me. And fortunately, because I wasn't working and didn't have a lot going on, I was able to focus on myself. I was able to take her to school and come back home and focus on me, which meant I was able to do 30-minute meditations, which meant I was able to listen to personal development all day long, which meant, I was able to start to journal and imagine and create the life that I wanted for myself, because I knew that where I was at that time was a season. I knew that that wasn't my life and what life had planned for me. So I knew there was more to come. So I used this downtime as an opportunity to work on myself and grow. And within that growth process, I started to let go of a lot. I follow the law of attraction and Abraham Hicks. And one of the things that she talks about is our obsessive need to be the king of the molehill, which is to control the small things around you that really don't matter.
Yeah.
So once I got that concept and I started to let go of things around me that in the long run not necessarily didn't serve me, but really didn't have an end result to any end goal that I knew I was shooting for.
Or any impact either.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. I let go. None of those things mattered. And that included parenthood. And what I mean by that is, I also discovered Dr. Shabari, and she's the author of The Conscious Parent. And I started to read that book as well. I saw her on Oprah.
I'm writing that down. Conscious parent.
And, one of the things that she talked about is, we're not the boss of our kids, and what and I'm just kind of saying that in simple terms. But what her message is every individual that's here is here of their own accord, and you need to allow everyone around you to be just that, to be themselves and what they came to be. And that includes parenting, that includes your children. So you set boundaries for yourself, for your life, for your household, and then you just move accordingly. So what I mean by that, just to kind of bring it down for parents, is something as simple as, cell phone usage, or doing homework, or, time to go to bed. You set boundaries as a parent. This is what time lights are off, or, within this amount of time, is screen time. Whatever those things are, you set the rules for your household. And if those, I won't say rules are not followed, but you also attach consequences to them. So as an example, the train leaves every morning at 6 a.m. So if you choose to stay up to 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning on the phone, that has nothing to do with me, or I won't control that. But the rule of the house is we leave at 6 a.m. every morning. So if you want to put yourself in a situation where you've only gotten 3 hours of sleep
And you tired. That's your business.
exactly, but the train leaves at 6 a.m.
Right.
every morning. So when you start to look at life and you start to impose things where you set those boundaries, you're able to let go of certain things. So now I'm no longer needing to do a check. I go to bed whenever I go to bed, and if the house is up, the house is up. But again, these are what the rules are.
That's interesting because I was traveling one day and my Uber driver was Ethiopian, and he was telling us a spiritual belief or spiritual practice that they have is similar to the testimony you shared, which is, yes, your parents are your parents, but they're more so your guardian,
Correct.
right? And your true parent is the creator,
Correct.
right? And you might call him one thing, someone else may call him another thing, but the creator who gave you that breath every single morning is the true parent. Mm. And our parents in English language are the ones who are just here to guide us and instill with us the moral compass, and just make sure that we're okay and safe.
Right.
Until we get to the age of 18 or whatever the age, the coming of age is in some countries. Right. For them to then walk and have their own experience exactly. with the creator and stay connected with their true parent, correct. Which is the creator. So it's just a moment of just clarity and connection to what you said in that story, because you're right. It's like we can't control. The more we try to control, the more damage we're actually doing.
Correct.
Because we're not allowing our youth or our descendants, or I would like to call ascendants, right, to really learn those true lessons of self-identification, right. Learning how to fail. And failure is really just lessons and opportunities to learn. So I think that's interesting. And what would you feel like was the biggest impact of that switch, of that style of parenting for you?
More freedom, for
yeah.
sure.
Did you abuse the freedom at one point? Or do you plead the fifth?
I don't think that I did. Because I was never really wild, know. But it did allow me to, like you said, kind of like have my own, like understand the consequence. Because I think when we're told what the consequence will be, we still have that sense of like rebellion against it, because we don't really know if it's true or not. Like you're telling me not to do it, but I kind of want to see for myself. Right. So we naturally rebel. But when, like she said, if you tell me I need to be up at 6 and I decide to stay up till 2, I can now see firsthand what that consequence looks like and make a decision for myself. Do I want to be tired, or do I want to go to sleep? Like it's just allowing me to make those choices, which I do think equipped me for life and being able to make decisions, but also being self-aware.
Yeah.
Because when you're told what to do your whole life, when you turn 18 or whatever that age is, like you said, you're kind of lost because you haven't made your decisions for yourself ever. So when you're able to make those decisions for yourself, it's able to allow you to become more self-aware in the process. So that did a lot for my self-awareness and just, again, like freedom, but not in the sense of just being able to do what I want to do. But I think it also helped our relationship in terms of that respect factor. Like me feeling respected, heard, supported, because she's not really trying to control me. She's more so just trying to guide me and just be that support system as I make my own decisions. So it helped with self-awareness and like accountability, sustainability, but then also, of course, our relationship as a whole.
Yeah, no, it sounds very liberating. And again, it's special to hear that you've had that awakening to, to even make those changes, because it obviously played a huge part into where you are in your journey as well. And there are a lot of people that I know who didn't have, the opportunity to have that type of structure in the house. Even for me, my parents did a great job, but there were still moments that I can recall that if I asked a question, right, it was like, because I said so, right? That was still the reality, but for the most part, obviously to their, the things that did right outweigh the things that they,
Correct.
made mistakes in. But for other people, that wasn't the case. And I know that, and I've seen that firsthand with, kids that I've coached to adults that I have conversations with. And of course, you're having conversation with adults now all the time. Have you seen what that looks like, where an adult has a different experience at home, how they were raised? And how would you find moments for them to find that self-awareness? Because it seems like self-awareness is the beginning of it all.
It is, and I mean, you have to just do it, and you have to measure and weigh what's most important. And I know that there's times that she can remember, I would be in a space where, and don't get it twisted, this was not an easy thing to do. Mm-hmm. And mother with mother and daughter, and two women, and attitudes and personalities, right. And there were times, or a lot of times. So what I'm trying to say is I had to be the bigger person as the adult in the situation. And if she and I are in the middle of a conversation or in the middle of a situation that's not happening, that's going down a negative path, mm-hmm. Yes, I could invoke at any time my authority in the situation. But after reading Dr. Shabari's book and understanding that we're individual souls, I didn't want to put her in that space. And that's how I was raised. I was raised with the mindset of, do as I say, not as I do. Mm. So I made the conscious decision to break a generational curse with this. And it took work. So going back to what I was saying, there's times when we were in the middle of a situation and I had to be the bigger person and stop and breathe. And I'd sometimes say to her, you didn't give me my joy and you're not going to take it away. And I'd literally turn around and walk out of the room. Because it took me needing to grow and understand that she could be going through something right now. She could have had a hard day. It could be hormones, whatever this situation is, however she's communicating with you, even though you may want to pop her or do whatever it is, based on how I was raised, right. Not that I support child abuse. But I done got a couple poppers though, so you know what I'm saying. I can't necessarily say all poppers is child abuse. Right. I just wanted to make that disclaimer. But from a serious side, I wanted to be able to teach, and if it meant teaching her how to communicate or how to communicate better, then I have to allow her to grow through the situation, allow us to both deal with it and cool off, and then come back to it and see how can we be better the next time. So it's a lot of trial and error. Yeah, and you mentioned a phrase that gets recycled a lot, generational curses. And, we have generational wealth and we have generational curses. And I feel like for both, people look at it as something that's very one-dimensional and it's like one thing. But it's so compartmental that it rarely shows itself. And oftentimes we'll find ourselves in a generational curse and not even know it. Right. As coaches, what are some generational curses or some trends of curses that you have seen amongst your community and amongst your students that you have had to identify and make them aware of, if any, have stuck question. Out? Because this is context for the audience, right? Because, like I said, it's hidden, right. A lot of times. I'd say for me, it's mindset. It's mindset and the belief that no matter your circumstance or what you went through, you can have whatever you want out of life. Like it's really that simple. There's a lot of little things that we can add to that, and oftentimes we build and make it more complex than what it really is. But we're living in a cage of less than based on our belief system. And our belief system is if we grew up without enough, and rather that's food or communication or family or dollars, whatever that is, then we think that this is us, this is who we are, and this is the life that we live. So it's just as simple as knowing and understanding that your past doesn't have to be your future, period.
So I'm hearing like some scarce mindset. Correct. Got you. Would you say the same or some others that stuck out to you?
Yes, of course, the same. I'd also say selfishness isn't valued enough. And I think that, I find that regardless of where the client is or anybody that I talk to, friends, whatever, it's always that caring of what the parent would think, what friends would think, what my community would think. So on that level, when I say selfishness, but also just being able to, I think watching her say, you didn't give me my joy, so you can't take it. Watching her be selfish.
That's a level
and
of
watching that
okay.
was okay. Like watching how selfishness actually led to selflessness. Watching how selfishness in yourself or in her led to the freedom of me. Because when you are selfish and you're focused inward, you can allow everybody to be who they are and everybody to be them. So yeah, selfishness really isn't valued in a sense of like really putting me first. A lot of times, especially Black women, that we deal with as far as clients will put everybody else first. They have this need to literally put everybody in their life before them. And I'm not really sure where that comes from, but being able
Cattle
to
slavery.
see, so I think that's a big one. And when they start to make that shift and really value selfishness, that could be as simple as a morning routine in the morning. Like, no, if I don't meditate, I can't talk to you. I can't answer an email. I can't do anything for you. If I don't do any type of self-care and fill my own cup up, I can't help you and I can't fill yours up. So when they make that shift, I see crazy changes happen in their life.
That's a good point. I commend you for identifying that and bringing it to the forefront. Because when I think of selfishness, I imagine an exercise of, taking off my hat and say it's a leak, right? And it's water flowing and I'm just trying to catch all the water. And instead of putting it in my cup, I'm like spraying it out and just trying to, but doing it like this, I'm not even hitting the other cups. I'm not filling the other cups. I'm just, you get a drop, they get a drop over here. And then now we all have halfway full cups and my cup is most likely empty, collecting dust. And that doesn't do anyone any good. But if you're a little bit selfish or you would have a nice balance of selfishness, right? You're able to collect all that water that's flowing, pour it in your cup, and then you'll notice it start to flow into the other cups around you as well, just from having that, like Oprah like to say, right? Like, my cup spilleth over, right? Just having that cup full and spilling over into others, like you said, is how you're able to allow people to be themselves. But when you collecting dust and you see other people getting some water, you kind of mad and spiteful towards people just for being themselves because they're happy and you not, right? Has that, with selfishness, what does that look like practically though? Like what is a healthy way to practice selfishness, and where do you draw the line to where selfishness becomes more of a toxic trait?
That's a good question.
Yeah. Selfishness, in my opinion, in the general sense, looks like just being able to put your needs before anybody else's. And then in a more practical sense, it looks like waking up and starting your day focused inward. That could be meditation, that could be journaling, that could be prayer, but deciding that nothing else happens until I fill my cup up, until I do something for me that makes me feel kind of ready for the day. So again, no emails are answered, no calls are answered. But then also being able to, because I think when you do that, you're able throughout the day to then pour into other people. And then being able to say no. Like when you don't want to do something, when you generally don't want to do something for someone else, being okay with saying no and understanding that no is a full sentence and it doesn't have to be explained and it's okay to say no.
I like that.
And kind of allowing that person to react to it and seeing how they react, because if somebody calls you selfish for not putting their needs first, what are they? I think that's when it becomes toxic. When somebody else condemns you for putting yourself first because you didn't put them first, that's when it becomes toxic, because you're calling me selfish for not putting you first.
When that's the invert, like they're actually okay, I got you.
I think that's when it's most toxic. I can't think of what really when it comes to, I guess when you say toxicity and selfishness, I think more of maybe in intimate relationships and like relationships, being all about you, and like during an argument or during like contrasting situations where you're not really considering the other person, what they're with how they feel and what they're saying, only considering your thoughts and your feelings in that moment, that's when it's toxic. But overall, just saying that my standard is before I can pour into anybody else, I'm going to pour into myself first, and I'm going to make sure that I'm full, is when it stays healthy.
And I guess the best way to do that, like you mentioned in the beginning, is just creating those environments, like those sacred environments, like waking up early so that you have that time to meditate. You have that time to, you know, some people might need some coffee, some tea, or some people just need to have an extra 15 minutes to where they're able to just be awake, but still lay in bed and just think, right? Just creating those sacred moments that belong to you and no one else. And it doesn't always have to be in the morning. It could be at any time of the day, but just having some sacred rituals and traditions that you own for yourself. What about for you? Have you identified any toxic traits of selfishness or how that have shown itself to you?
Well, I think it becomes when the person isn't self-aware. So when the person isn't self-aware and they are just acting or responding to things that are around them, and it has a negative impact to the people that are in your immediate space, I think that is when it becomes toxic. So one of the biggest traits of a healthy, selfish person is to be self-aware and to be intentional. So when we say morning routine, when we say living life on purpose, it's being intentional with what you do. And when you're intentional with your day, then chances are you're aligned. And when you're aligned, then you are in a space where you can give or you can pour into other people. So we're not saying don't do things for others. We're saying align yourself first before you are able to pour into others.
I like that word too, the alignment.
Correct.
Because everything, if it's not aligned, you know, you're going to end up breaking something, you know, and broken people break people, hurt people. So you want to be aligned before you start anything new. And even you guys have mentioned off tape, you know, while we were, you know, getting a chance to know a little bit more about each other, about mindset and how important mindset is before going into anything new. Talk to our audience about, because of course it's so funny, the most intentional people are the people who are usually going through some really tough times, right? Like you mentioned, you were going through that time where you were laid off, no transportation, and that's when you got really intentional about personal development.
Exactly.
And that is always the trend, even for myself. It's like when things are going good, you know, it's easy for you to coast. Now you just kind of coming home, you spend a little bit of time lollygagging, watching Netflix, you just relaxing, you going on trips here and there, spending money frivolously. But once things get tough, now we more intentional. Now we on a budget, right? Now we want to focus on reading books. So how can we maintain a level of intentionality, whether we going through these trying times or even when we coasting and things are looking up?
I think growth is a key word there, always wanting to grow or being in a space of growth. I find, and that's why a lot of folks come to us, because they may be in a space where they've accomplished something, but they know they want more and they can't get to that next level. And, you know, I've experienced folks who've wanted something so bad, and, you know, this was the only thing they wanted. And I'm going to use a house as an example. You know, let's take an individual who, you know, all they can see is, I want this house. I want this house. Well, when you get the house, you have the house. Now what? And sometimes it's hard to kind of move from there because you wanted that thing so bad. And when you got it, so going back to your example, now I have the money, I have the opportunity, I have the time freedom so that I can spend frivolous. Why can I not say that?
It's
word?
a tongue twister.
Frivolously. I can spend frivolously. Okay, we're gonna take that out. So that I can spend, I can travel, I can do the things that I want to do. But, you know, if you're not continuing to grow and continuing to build, then those things will eventually run out. And if your why isn't, and that's kind of going back to our system, you now have to change your why or change the goal. So if the goal was to get a house and now you have the house, you now have to shoot for something different.
Right.
Your why has to be stronger. If my why was to be able to take care of my family, and now I've made it to where my family's taken care of, but now what happens next? So it's being able to constantly being in a space of growth, but also finding more whys or more things to connect to that will keep you motivated and inspired to continue to build from there.
That's a great answer. You're getting ready to add to that, I feel like, as well.
I agree 100% with that. And also, I think that as a society, I think we're subconsciously addicted to the feeling of perseverance, like being able to go low and then build ourselves high. So when we're low, I think it's that sense of urgency. Like, okay, now it's time to get intentional. Now it's time to set my intentions, and now I got to start meditating. Now I got to start budgeting, and kind of like that rush, that adrenaline rush, that stress. So I think we're subconsciously addicted to that stress, and maintenance is boring. Like when life is going good, waking up and meditating when you really don't feel like you need to, or budgeting when money's flowing in, like maintenance isn't exciting. So having that ability to understand that these are the things that got me here, valuing prevention more than we value pulling ourselves out of a hole, but preventing ourselves from getting into that hole. So valuing prevention, like preventing falling into a depression, preventing falling into some type of financial, discord, preventing ourselves from getting to that point, and understanding that what got me here was budgeting right or meditating every day or whatever the case is, and then continuing to do those things even though it's not as exciting as it was when you were on this trip of getting my life together, So I think it's less exciting, so it stimulates us less, so we don't really value it too much. But connecting to your why, how you got here, why you're doing it in the first place, and then setting a new goal, like she said, going for something more, going for better, and constantly in the space of just growing and growth mindset.
Now, this is a more systems-oriented question. What would be the beginning of creating a system that works for someone to have a good morning routine, or to just create order, or to even make that maintenance a little bit more exciting or manageable and less mundane?
I would say have a list of things that can get you in that space. Like if you like to light a candle when you shower or when you take a bath, or if you like to meditate, if you use the same sound every day when you meditate, that can get boring. So try different sounds. Try different guided meditations. Create your own meditation. Start to practice like some type of newness within the mundane everyday tasks. I think that's a way to keep it exciting. And then also like maybe tracking it as well. Tracking after you do the thing, tracking how you feel. So every day when I meditate, after I meditate, I write in my little journal, like, how did I feel afterward? And if every day I'm writing that, I went from feeling maybe content to feeling excited about the day or feeling empowered, well, I'm going to do it every day because I'm tracking the fact that I feel this way. And then when I do it, I feel way better. So now I'm able to consciously understand that this is what this thing is doing for me instead of just doing it every day and allowing it to be on autopilot.
Yeah.
So now tracking that journey and tracking how I feel after I do this thing, that really helps because now I'm more intentional about why I'm doing the thing that I'm doing.
And I had a feeling that you journal, and journaling is something that's every day.
Yes.
Okay. You journal as well?
Yes.
Every day?
Not every day.
Okay. So what is, for our audience, because I journal. I don't journal every day. I don't journal as much as I would even like to, but I at least acknowledge the power of journaling. And for our audience that has not even tapped into journaling, like if you could speak to the benefits or, some of the changes or the feelings that you've gotten from journaling and how it maybe even sets you up for the next day, the next month, the next quarter.
Just levels to my journaling.
Okay.
I do a morning type of journal where I'm just creating for the day, but I'm also, like I said, after I meditate, I track how I feel. And then I'm just in a creating space. So I'm forward thinking in my journaling, and I'm tracking how I'm feeling that day and my intentions for the day. That has pretty much changed how my entire day goes, like the trajectory of my whole day, because now I'm able to set that intention. And then I journal for business. So every day I might do some business development, and I just write what I learned that day. I date it, I write the topic, and then I just kind of write out whatever it is that I learned or what I got from it or how I can apply it. That really helps. And then there's a part of me, or a part of the journaling, where I have another journal for any ideas that might come up. So ideas that I might not really be ready to act on, but a lot of times when you have an idea, you want to immediately act on it, and now you're throwing your whole journey off, because now you're like, okay, I was on this path, but now let me do this because it's an idea that I had. But when I journal, or I'm able to journal about it, I can now be like, okay, I'm going to put a pin in that for later. I can focus on that later, because now I have a place where I wrote it down so I can see it when I'm actually ready to do it. So those are the 3 ways that I journal. And then, of course, at night, I do like the reflection and how my day went and stuff like that.
Does that go in a separate journal as well?
Okay, that one's in the one
in the morning journal.
In the morning, yeah.
Okay, all right. So you got a morning and a night journal.
Yeah,
okay,
together. And that's just me, like, in a creating space again, forward thinking. I never really journal to vent. I more so journal to even if I am feeling a little lower in my vibration, I like to journal to calibrate, to move up. So if I'm feeling some kind of way about whatever the case is, I might journal the complete opposite of that, even if it's a little delusional. It's not what I'm actually feeling or thinking. And when I'm finished, I actually do feel 100% better. So
that's interesting. And this is definitely non-traditional way of thinking, but I always felt like journaling was also another form of prayer and meditation as well. Because, and like you mentioned, you said you don't really journal to vent either. And a lot of times, I feel like even the way that I've grew up, I've always thought that people went to prayer when it was time to vent about something, when something was going wrong. And then when things were going right, then you don't really see the prayers coming in anymore. But again, prayer is another one of those things that, whatever floats your boat is, you get down on your knees and pray. If you journaling, if you meditate, I even find that meditation is a form of prayer as well. But again, it goes to what is better identifiable for you, and what kind of flows into how you live, the way that you live, the schedules that you live, because we're always like, God is within us, right? We talking to God every single day. So when you journaling, you having those conversations with your creator as well, because where you got that idea, that's where you got the idea from.
Exactly.
And I love that you even have a journal dedicated to writing down those ideas, because a lot of people get an idea, and if they can't act on it right away, they don't do anything with it, and then they just forget about it. And that's like I said a few months ago, it's like putting God on D&D at that point, right? Because you got the idea, and then now you don't want to do nothing with it. You don't want to write it down. You don't want to talk to nobody about it. You just like, I can't do that right now, and then you forget about it, right? So I think being able to write it down is having that self-awareness, like, hey, this is also, because I'm talking to God every day with my journaling. This is the journey. This is the walk that I'm supposed to be taking. But you also gave me this idea, so now it's up for me to figure out where this falls in line. It just doesn't fall in line right now. I know it falls in line. I trust you,
not
but
right now.
you trusting me with the discernment,
Yeah.
right? You have to be able to discern, so that's important. I want to switch gears a little bit, and because you guys have went from fitness coaching to more so life coaching, specifically in the mindset and systems. What did it look like switching gears and making that pivot? I know you said it happened naturally, but we talked about the email list, to cleaning it out, to being, honing in on that audience, and making these different changes. What did that look like operationally, pivoting in business? And if you could break it down from a practical standpoint, point to others who are pivoting in businesses, some pivots bigger than others. Practically, what does that look like to make those changes and to switch gears?
Well, it definitely was a transition, and we had to sit down ahead of time and really think through it and talk about it. Kay has a large following. I'm not real big on social media, but we knew that, even with her following, that the majority of the folks, she built her following organically, but it was through fitness. So we knew that there will be a lull in that, but you kind of look at the end goal, and it's what is most important. So it's understanding that you're going to hit a down slope, but also knowing that you're going to recover from it. Know that you're going to recover from it. And then the folks that are not for you, will, slowly fall away, which is what we wanted, to make space for the people who are in alignment with our new direction.
Right.
So from a financial standpoint, that meant making sure we had X amount of dollars or enough in the bank, because again, we knew dollars would slow down. And then from a mental perspective, to be able to, wake up and see your numbers, or to see our email list, change, to see these things happen and not allow it to discourage us, because this is a part of the journey. This is what we identified. And one of the exercises that we do with our clients is, once we identify a goal and once we come up with a plan, we think about the worst that can happen. We think about the obstacles. We think about the challenges, and we address them, and we talk about them ahead of time, and then we come up with a strategy or a plan for them, so that when it does happen, it doesn't deter you. Sometimes it may slow you down, but it doesn't stop you. So it wasn't easy. We went through, some I won't say mental challenges, but it's some days are better than other days, and to go, a week or two without anyone scheduling a consultation, when you're used to always being in action, you can see that difference. And then you sometimes question, did I make the right decision? But those moments are very short-lived. But, you don't beat up on yourself for feeling that way, or you don't beat up on yourself for going through those phases. That's where connecting to your why, that's where personal development, that's where inspiration, inspirational videos and motivational videos. And that's where, we've been through the E.T. phase and the Les Brown phase and, the Jim Rohn, and depending on, and of course, Abraham Hicks. But we have these folks because even though they're all motivational speakers, they are all at different levels and their message is different. So depending on where you are mentally, you may be in an ET mode where you need to stay motivated and constantly put yourself in the grind, or you're in the Esther mode where things are at ease and, you're looking at life differently. So we expected it, it happened, we expected it, we dealt with it, we stayed the course, and now we're on the other side.
Yeah.
You also have to understand momentum too. When you really understand momentum, like when you really get what it is, then you can kind of move with a little more faith, because we understood that, okay, momentum just built here in fitness, because we was low at one point there too, and it built. And now that we're transitioning, the momentum just has to build in that direction. So when you just understand that it's all a matter of momentum, you know that, okay, that all this means is I have to build momentum. And that just means putting out more, whatever that means, putting out more content, reaching out to people directly, whatever that means to build momentum. And whatever I need to do to do that, I'm just going to have to do it.
Yeah, and pivoting in any direction, because when you walk towards something, you have to naturally walk away from something else. So whenever you pivot, it's like you're going to have that dip, and then with that dip is going to be that momentum boost. And we see it all the time, but it's just people don't want to recognize it. When we're looking at stocks, you see dips and trends up. When you're looking at Forex, when you're looking at graphs and charts, everything is ups and downs. And I think the difference was you guys expected it, where most people try to fight it. And when you fight that, I like to call the valley of disappointment, from that where you were to going down, and once you get back up, that gap is that valley of disappointment. And it's disappointing because most people try not to expect it. Most people no, it's not going to happen to me. Yeah. Most people try to fight it, and what happens is the more you fight it, that dip, it may not drop to a certain point, right? But it will flatline, and you'll stay there longer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So expecting it is like you go down, but you end up coming right back up because you're able to prepare. You're able to prepare your minds, your pockets, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. You know, you're able to weather the storm. It's like when you hear the news and like, oh, it's going to be a food shortage. It's like, okay, we about to hit Walmart. We about to hit. We're going to stock up on our groceries, and we're going to bunker down, and we're not going to make any rash decisions. We're just going to chill out. And that's the power of that. So I appreciate y'all sharing that. What would you say was that moment where you saw like, okay, we're starting to get out of this valley of disappointment, and the momentum started to shift back up?
What was the moment? When consultation starts to pick back up.
All right. What is so I do want to get it. I am curious though. What does like the avatar look like? Like who is typically, coming to you guys and getting like the best results? Like what does that student look like? The person that comes in, gets the best results, they stay, and they're just like, that's the testimony. What does that person look like from a personality or from an avatar standpoint?
The person that knows exactly what they want. The person that comes to us and they're like, even if they don't know like the specifics, they know like
they have
this
the direction.
is not where I'm supposed to be. Okay. Like I'm supposed to be further than this, or I know that I want my quality of life to improve. Some people are very sure, like I know I want to get to this place in my business, or I want to get to this place in my company, or I want to be a wife, or I want to be a mother. Like some people come to us with those type of goals as well. So sometimes they know specifically, and sometimes they know very generally. But the similarity in that is that they know. Mm-hmm. People who are extremely confident in what they want, that is the person that gets the best result. And sometimes people come to us and they're not there yet. But once they get there, again, best result comes from that. So it's that first step of knowing exactly what they want.
And knowing that they're in control. Not everyone knows that you control your destiny. Not everyone knows that you literally hold the keys to the life of your dreams. So it's someone who comes to us not wondering, hoping, or ifing, but someone who comes to us and knows this is what I want. I need you to help me get there. Period. No questions asked.
So what I find is interesting, because it's like even plays to your dynamic even more again, is the difference between social media presence. I know you mentioned that you're not really on social media like that. You have a social media presence. But what I want to touch on is because there are so many people right now who are in the watch me phase, or think that the watch me phase is what it takes to become successful in business. For the consultation to come in, for the money to come in, you have to have a social media presence. And I've been on both sides of that. I've been on sides where my social media presence has got me paid, and I've been on, times where going away from social media, having a hiatus from, indulging in social media and focusing on the development of my business also got me paid. Right. So if you could both speak to your experiences of being on and off social media, and in what ways you're able to, thrive as a coach, I think that'd be very motivating for the people who both have a platform and don't have a platform. Yeah.
I'll let you go first since you have the platform.
Social media doesn't get, like, it's not the answer to it. It just helps. It's just a tool to help you get it. And of course it makes it easier. So, but again, it definitely doesn't equal, because like we said, it depends on your audience. So if your audience is in alignment with what you're selling, then the results will be better. But, natural conversation as well, meeting someone at a networking event, word of mouth through other clients. Word of mouth is a big one. Yeah. And making sure for us in our business, it's about making sure, social media or not, it's about making sure that our impact on each individual person is as powerful as possible, because they can tell their cousin, their friend, their coworker, and that word of mouth will spread. So it's about truly impacting. And when I first started fitness, it was like the thought that I had to constantly get new. So I wasn't really valuing the two people that were there. Once I started to focus on valuing the two people that showed up, then it started to shift how the momentum. Again, it starts to shift the momentum and being able for that word of mouth to spread.
Right.
So if you're getting one person that's coming in from a consultation, whether you have a big following or not, because again, you can have a big following, but it might not translate well. So regardless of what you're getting, valuing that person and making sure that you're giving that person that impact, and then not being afraid to say, hey, tell your cousin about me, tell your friends about me, tell people about me, and refer them to me. So having a referral program in place really helps as well. And then showcasing that. So like you said, you're in a watch me phase, and yes, watch me, but watch the work that I'm doing. So instead of watch me, now because you're giving impact to this person, now you have messages coming in, you have a testimony video coming in. So now you can post that. So now you're able to allow your work to speak for itself. And now you have one person turn into 3 a week or whatever that looks like, or a month, because that person now has so much to say about you, and now you have that to show. So now you have that momentum built as well. So, word of mouth, valuing conversations when you're out, networking events or whatever the case is, meeting someone at the grocery store. It could be as simple as meeting someone, like I said, at a grocery store, at the mall, or whatever the case is. So valuing conversations, and when you're out, and just like that natural, organic communication, and then word of mouth, but then of course also showcasing your work on your social media platform, as opposed to, it's a good balance between you, yourself, and your work.
That's a big point. That's a very big point. And I imagine for you, Rhea, it's a lot more of the networking and the in-person conversations. So for introverts, right? Because I used to consider myself an introvert until I learned that there is a level in between, which people call ambivert or ambivert, which is like a combination of the extroverts and introverts, right? So what it means for me is I'm typically the person that at a networking event, I'm not floating around talking to everybody. I'll usually find a safe place, whether it's like a lounge area, a corner that I see a couple people there, and I'll talk to a couple people. And most of the rest of the time, I'll mostly sit there and let the conversations come to me. But once the conversations start, I can hold the conversation pretty well. But I used to think I was just straight introvert, but I'm not necessarily that person.
Okay.
But for introverts and our ambiverts, what would you say is like a mindset hack or some exercises that people could practice to be better at networking, especially being more intentional with going to networking events? Because if you don't have a following, because some people are not, they're not social media people. They want to be social media people, but they just don't have a following, right? So even then, you still have to lean on your abilities to network and go to these events. What does that look like for y'all? And from a practical standpoint, again, like I'm all about the actions and the practicality.
Yeah.
What does that look like for people practicing networking to be out there and be more intentional?
So we're introverts, just so you know. So social media is hard for me. She grew, her following in the fitness realm, and I still struggle with,
People being in your business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that too, right? That's where I struggle. I'm like, do I want to post this? Like, I don't want y'all knowing this part of me, right?
Yeah. That is just hard for me my mind
Make
to
that
just
connection.
grasp the whole concept. But I see the value as it relates to what we do as life coaches. But as networking events, I'd say for practical tips, find a friend or a partner or someone to attend with. And then when you go, something that we actually do is we'll set, okay, we're not leaving until we get X amount of contacts. Either that's 3 contacts or 5 contacts or whatever that is. We're not leaving until we accomplish that.
Do y'all change it, or is it the same every time, or do y'all change it? And what makes y'all? I'm just curious. What makes y'all change the number if it varies?
I think it would depend on the amount of people, either how long we've been there,
Okay.
at what point.
Too. I mean, sometimes we have a long day.
You don't really want to go. So like, we just gonna get one person, right? Okay.
So, but it also depends on the event, because so the first thing is you can't just make it an every now and then thing. If you're going to use network as a tool, then you have to get out there and check the calendar on a weekly, monthly basis and identify the events that you want to attend. And the reason that's important is because once you start to attend the events and once you get that first 5 contacts, you'll start to see that most circles are small, no matter how big the city is. So when you start to go to these events, you're going to see more of the same people. And when they see your face, now they connect and they know you and who you are and what you do and what you offer. And now you're waving or you're hey girling or you're hugging when you see each other because you've organically, naturally started to build. So you're making a name for yourself within your community, as well as expanding your network of people, because you're seeing the same group of people. So now, whereas you needed to get 5, now you only need to get 3 because you know most of the people that are in the room.
That's a big one.
So being consistent, having that partner, and then being accountable for not leaving until you get X amount of people, but then being consistent with attending the event so people can know your face and know what you do.
Like a wingman. You need a wingman, right?
Yes.
So that's a good one. And that's probably where I struggle with the most is I'll go to a networking event, but then not go to another one for 3, 4, 5 months, right? And so going to, you're right, especially in a city like Atlanta, there are small circles. There's a lot of small circles, but those circles are small, to say the least, to where you can find the same people floating around at these events. I think where I just need is, I'm just calling out my friends in my circle is like, if you watching this, know I need you to come to them events with me. I just need one of y'all. So somebody volunteer yourself to come out to these events with me, because that partner is good, because y'all can kind of float around together.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
Do y'all have, I'm not trying to have y'all give away y'all sauce, but do y'all have like set questions that y'all like icebreakers?
I don't know. Yeah.
I've heard, I don't have any myself, right? But I did hear from another coach that like just having like some icebreakers in your back pocket, to go to these networking events, does make it a little bit easier to, exchange contact information, learn more about people and things like that outside of the regular, what brought you here, right?
what do you do?
Are you from the area, right? And it's like, I always felt awkward asking those questions because I feel like they're obvious, right? Like the same reason why you here, like, and what makes you think I'm not from here, the area? Like, so it's tricky, right? So I guess that will be my homework, is coming up with some icebreakers and finding my wingman to go to the networking events.
Yes, I like the icebreaker. Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna pivot just one more time before we wrap things up. I do want to touch more on the systems that you guys have created, because you have, just learning a little bit more about your business, y'all have created some amazing systems that walks your client through a journey of discovery. And you called it the 4-phase system, right? What, if you could line that up for our audience, what does that look like? What do those 4 phases look like in the journeys, so that we can paint a clear picture of, where a person starts and where they finish with you guys, or, not even finish, where they start to get on cruise control?
You want me to?
I'd say, well, it starts with the first phase, which is knowing exactly what you want, identifying what you want. The second phase would be connecting to your why, being connected. And when we say connected, not just understanding it, but being emotionally connecting to it. Like, the why makes you cry almost when you really think about it. Step 3 or phase 3 would be plan. So creating a plan. And that could look like a plethora of things. So that could look like, understanding what you ultimately want, and then breaking that down into what the next year looks like, what the next 6 months look like, what the next 3 months look like, what the next month looks like, and get all the way down to the T, so what the next day looks like. And then execution. So being able to execute, and that's personal development. That's like the daily work. That's every single day, making sure that you have your morning routine set up, making sure that you are practicing personal and business development. And then from there, just making sure that you have your to-do list, you're checking it off, prioritizing everything you need to do. And of course, that comes from planning. So all the systems line up with each other. And it's the order. So it's the exact order of which you should be moving in following up into execution.
And I'm sure this was intentional, but I even love how the first 2 happen to fall under mindset, and then the second 2 fall under, the systems, the plan and execution.
Productivity.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Do you guys kind of like co-captain a client, or is it more so you lean into each other for ways to coach a client through that process?
We do lean into each other. We respect our clients' boundaries, and we respect the coach-client agreement. So, if a coach is if a client is working with one of us, we do have that confidentiality. But afterward, so we have that standard in place. But when it comes to getting a client from A to B, we do sit and talk about on a weekly basis, discuss our clients, and if one of the coaches have an idea or a resource or something that could help the other coach's client get to point A from point A to point B, we definitely do brainstorm those ideas as well. But we do take, each of us individually takes our clients through every phase.
So really, you both have to be skilled in both the mindset and the systems. It's just one is like the leader in it, to where we kind of like train. It's like cross training, right? It's like, okay, that's interesting. What would you say? And I really like the journey, because you have the identify, you said connect, that why is the biggest piece. And when you spoke on the why, first thing I thought of was reading Napoleon Hill, right? The one, why am I drawing blank on the name of the book? But
Outwitting the Devil?
What was that?
Is it Outwitting the Devil?
Not Outwitting the Devil. The one before that, Think and Grow Rich.
Oh.
Right. I did read Outwit the Devil is amazing, but Think and Grow Rich specifically, he talks about that burning desire, and I think that is the why is the modern translation to what he was talking about, was like having that burning desire. That's something that you want so bad. E.T. says, like, you want it so bad, you want it more than you want breath. Yeah, like you want to breathe. Like, you just have to want it so bad that nothing is going to stop you from obtaining it. And I guess the question is, how does a person identify what that thing is? Because most people will think a why is my kids, right? And it's easy to think your kids is a why, because they are very important. They're very monumental in your life. But once your kids, again, get to that moment where they're adults and they have their own why, they're not necessarily a why. Obviously, so that can't be the why if it has an expiration date. I feel like the why is something that is ongoing, because even in those moments of maintenance and where you're going through the motions, that why is what keeps you going. So if your why expires, you have to keep updating it. What are y'all thoughts on that? Would y'all agree, or do you feel like a why is also ever changing? Do you see whys change often?
I think it depends on your go ahead. Well, it depends on what area of life we're talking about. Because when it comes to your why for if you're a business owner, your why probably is always going to be the same. The impact you want to make and why you started the business in the first place. A general why, like, why do I want to be successful? Why do I want to make the money that I want to make? That could change. And I think Reed has a lot to say to that point. And then, health. I think health most likely stays the same. I want to be energized. I want to be able to move around my kids, or I want to be able to sustain a certain look. Like, I think that stays the same sometimes too. So I think a general life why might change sometimes, but
so even the why is compartmentalized.
Yes.
It is. Sure. It definitely can be, and it changes. And one of the things, which is a part of our assessment, we go 7 levels deep as it relates to your why, because my kids, to your point, that's very surface level. That's very general. And when it, my question would be to anyone who says my kids, your kids what? Do you want your kids to have an unlimited bank account? Do you want your kids to see you with an unlimited bank account, but you want them to work for theirs? Or is it something that you're trying to build so that you can pass down to them? Do you want to be able to play and throw a ball with your kids? Do you want your kids to see you in a successful relationship? Do you want, so what
right,
about your kids? Your kids what? So it would definitely be digging deeper to find out exactly what's is under that. Correct. Correct.
Now, as far as that's a great point too. Like, just being more specific, because it's like the employer asking, like, so why do you want this job? And you say, because I need money, right? Like, for what though? Right. What do you need the money for? What do you want to do? What type of impact? And I used to have that mindset, right? I used to think like, that's such a dumb question to ask me. Like, I'm obviously applying for this job because I need income, right? But then when you dig deeper, how you set yourself apart is by having, those specifics lined out and that actual why. So even the why for why you need a job is different than a why for how you want to live your life. Correct. Do y'all believe that work-life balance exists?
Absolutely.
Work-life balance exists for you. Okay. What does work-life balance look like for you? And do you think it exists as well?
Yes.
Okay. What does that look like?
It looks like a lot of planning. It looks like understanding what the next 3-6 months look like. It looks like understanding now that I have my important things out the way and I understand what that plan is. A lot of people plan, but they plan for their to-dos for their business. So it just means adding on top of that. So within this week or within this month, yes, you have to-dos that you want to hit. And yes, you have marketing or networking events you want to go to, and you have content that you need to put out. But what about your solo dates? What about your date with your significant other? What about, time spent with your family? Like, plan that too. Like, say every Friday I'm going to do this. Every Sunday we're going to have a dinner and we're going to sit down and have dinner together. I'm going to go on a solo date. I'm going to get a massage. Like, just also plan out the things that are important to you as far as life goes. And I think when you can plan, you allow for that flexibility and you allow for that freedom. So it just takes effort to plan.
I love that. I schedule everything on my calendar.
Everything.
And it's funny that you mentioned exactly what you said. Is like the more you plan, the more you allow that flexibility. Yeah. And for some people that sounds like a conundrum or an oxymoron, right? Like, what do you mean? The more I plan, it sounds like I'm tying myself up and I'm overcommitting. But it's like, if you have an exact idea of what your day looks like, it allows you to say no a lot more easy, right? It's like, if you have X amount of things lined up today, and somebody says, hey, I need to schedule a meet, you can say, no, I can't do that. Let's schedule that next week because I already have this plan, right? And so it even gets as deep as I schedule my free time. Even if I don't know what I want to do, I'll just put a 2-hour block for you time.
Correct.
I don't have to have it all laid out what I'm doing, but it has to have I have to have that time scheduled, right? Do you practice the same thing?
Same.
Okay. Awesome. So we all on the same page.
Yes, but I don't want to paint a false picture because there are times when it's difficult because I have 2 jobs or two businesses, I'll say, as a life coach, and I'm also a full-time IT project manager, and I have a very demanding job with that. So there are times where we plan everything to what Kay said, down, to the day, the week, the month. So there are times when I can't necessarily execute everything that's in my schedule, and that's okay. I give myself grace and I'm kind to myself and I pivot accordingly. It's not always easy, and there are lows. There's highs and lows. There's going to be days or weeks when you're just so swamped and so busy that you can't get to certain things, which is fine. But that's not life. That's not the case all the time. So it'll taper off, and get back to normal. So you don't move those things from your calendar. You don't become discouraged. You still continue to plan accordingly, and when life happens, you just pivot as you need to and make those adjustments.
I like that. And sticking on the topic of the why a little bit further, I was put onto an exercise of using your core values to shape your why. Pretty much like identifying what your core values are, and then you're able to come up with like a why statement based on those core values. What are your thoughts on core values? And if you use or have core values, how did you come up with what your core values are?
We have core values, and one of our freemiums in the identify, it does have you identify what your core values are and move from there. I wouldn't say it's a determining factor. I think it's important to identify just in the space of becoming self-aware as an individual, but I don't think that it's detrimental to identifying your why, but I do think it's detrimental to becoming more self-aware.
The core values.
The core values.
Elaborate on that. Where would the detriment come in at?
Well, the first thing, in order to, the majority of our clients, in order to get through all 4 phases, there's a self journey that you have to take. So either you're already there and you know who you are and you are aware of self. And being aware of self is being able to hold yourself accountable. And that simply means understanding your strong points, your weak points, knowing your values, knowing your beliefs. And from there, the output would be your habits, the things that you do on a daily basis. And your daily habits, again, all stem from, those things that I just named. And your habits are what helps you on your path to execution. It's how you show up. It's how you do anything, having the morning routine, being able to execute on a daily basis, is built around your habits. So again, before you can get to any of those points, you have to know who you are and what your triggers are, what your traumas are, what you've healed from, what your boundaries are, what your values are. Those are all things that I think once you identify those things, they help you on your path to self-awareness. And I believe you have to be aware of self before you can move down that journey, if that makes sense.
I think it impacts, like you said, habits and identifying your goal. It does fall in alignment with your why. But just to give an example, we had a client and the value, the core value, one of the core values was freedom. They really value freedom. They're having their time freedom, having their financial freedom, but mostly time freedom specifically. And that's why they were saying, like, this is why I don't want a job. This is why I want to, have my own business, start my own business. But the way they were setting their business up was to ultimately be a slave to that routine, was to ultimately set themselves up to being in a space where they had no time freedom, and they kind of found it noble, or found the justification for their success in the fact that they had no time. I don't have time to party. I don't have time to spend time with this person because they're always demanding my time, but I need to be working. I need to be working on my business up till 3 a.m, like really using all their time for their business. And, that's why they're saying they don't want a job. So I had to bring to their attention, well, one of your core values is time freedom, and that's the reason why, that's your why as to why you don't want a job. But that's how you're setting your business up. And now you have this flexibility to create your schedule, and you're putting yourself in a position of having no time freedom. So just bringing that to their attention so that they understand more so what they're going for and what the actual goal is. I think the core value makes that more clear, what the goal is going to be. And then I think, again, it does play a role in your why as well, though.
Now, Ree, you mentioned boundaries. And we touched a little bit on the boundaries when we were speaking on the selfishness and where and when to be selfish. But what we didn't talk about relating to boundaries was, how do we communicate? Like, what are some ways that we can communicate boundaries, especially when we're establishing new boundaries to old partners, new boundaries to new relationships that have been established? What are some ways that we can just establish boundaries in a way that doesn't make us look like an asshole, right? Essentially, right? Sometimes you got to.
I mean, there's really no easy way around it. It comes down to communication. I mean, and it depends on the individual and their personality. And I'm going to use my brother, and I hope he doesn't kill me. But my brother has a harsh delivery, and not in. And
we all know people like that.
Yeah, and not in a negative way. I mean, and he'll tell you the same thing, but it's how he communicates. And I say that to say, so when you're having a conversation with him and he delivers something, you kind of take it with a grain of salt, because you know that this is how this individual is and this is how they communicate information. And then it's up to you as an individual to set your boundary and determine if you choose to be in this space or to communicate with this individual or not. So for the person on the receiving end is to understand who it is that you're dealing with. And then as an individual, you have to be you unapologetically, which is why I'm bringing him up, and I respect him so much because he is unapologetically who he is. So I don't think there's a nice way I don't think there's a gentle way to communicate boundaries, because it's not so much as how you communicate it, it's the person on the other end. And the reason I'm saying this is because I have been in multiple situations, not just in relationships, where the person that you're dealing with on the other end will lead you to believe that the situation has gone wrong because of how you communicated it. And then situation is over, and now you're posed in a new situation with this person. You're mindful of the last situation, and you intentionally communicated as gently, as softly, as kindly as you can. And it's still taken the way that it was taken the last time you said it. And it's like, it wasn't how you delivered it, it's the fact that you delivered it. And the person doesn't want to receive. I don't want you to tell me no. And I'm going to, and instead of telling you, I don't want you to tell me no, I'm going to say, I don't like how you said that to me.
So it's how they deliver their boundary or not delivering their boundary.
It's how it's been received. And no matter how you deliver it, no one wants to be told. If I'm used to taking from you, the day that you tell me no, it doesn't matter how you say it. I'm used to taking, and it's going to be an adjustment. It's internal, but initially it's going to be external, where I'm going to say to you, I don't like the way that you said that to me. Why did you say it to me that way? And then the next time you need to communicate it, you say it differently, and I still come at you with, because the reality is, it wasn't how you said it. I don't like the fact that you said it. I don't like the fact that you told me no. So I'm saying all of that to say that you have to unapologetically just do it. Just set your back. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, but it's going to be tough for people who already know you. If you're a people pleaser and you're now setting a new boundary with people who've known you for years, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
No matter how you say it.
That's going to be work.
It's going to be different, of course, when you start to meet new people and you can practice it with new people. That's going to be different. But when it's people you already know and they're used to taking from you, like she said, it's going to be a tough transition regardless.
Yeah, so you just do it.
Just communicate. It just sounds like the boundary got to get communicated some way, somehow.
Yeah, right.
What you don't want to do is be so timid or so worried about how it's going to be perceived that you don't communicate the boundary in the first place.
Correct, because chances are it's not going to be received. If it's someone who's used to taking and this is the first time you're telling them no, that's not going to be well received regardless of how you
Right, because if you think about what a boundary is, it's communicating this is a line, don't cross it.
Correct.
Right, so it's now you're telling people what not to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
And most adults don't like being told what not to do.
Correct.
Right. So I think that's where we all on the same playing field with that, and I really wanted the audience to get that piece because there are so many people that just don't know how, and just not knowing how stops so many of us from even communicating those boundaries in the first place. And right now I'm reading a book, or I just finished reading a book called Essentialism, which is the art of leveraging and saying no, right? So being able to tell people no, and in the past, so we know we got priorities, right? The fact that we even say priorities is a conundrum, right? Because it derived from the word priority, which means the first and only. So when we now say we have priorities, we got multiple first and onlys, right? So essentialism is just learning what your priority is, and learning how to essentialize it and say no to things that don't align with that.
Right.
And that's going to come with a lot of setting boundaries, setting new boundaries. And me reading that book has allowed me to be able to figure out ways to just say, hey, this is not important no more. I can't do this. Down to the point where I even had to drop a few clients because it's still aligned with my passion and what I wanted to do, but it no longer aligned with other values like time freedom and being able to focus on the bigger scale. Right. So I just wanted to kind of get that point across to our audience to be able to learn how to identify their boundaries and communicate those boundaries.
Right. Correct. And you want to be kind, of course.
Yeah, be a good person.
You never want to be mean, but at the same time, you don't feel bad for needing to communicate that or set those boundaries or tell someone no. And like Kay said, if it's someone that already knows you, it's not going to be easy, but you need to just do it. It's okay.
Just do it like Nike. Hey, y'all, we getting ready to wrap this up. And ladies, it's been a pleasure having this conversation with y'all. I feel like I have learned a lot. I know the audience has learned a lot. And one thing that I want to do before we go is I love to ask the question of the red pill, blue pill. So if collectively, if y'all could give our audience a red pill or a blue pill, kind of like the Matrix, when Morpheus gave Neo like the option, like you pick this or you pick that, which one is going to be, right? What would that look like if you could give our audience some type of decision to make that will give them this option or give them that option? What would that look like?
So I'd say for me it would be free will, for exercising free will and understanding, again, going back to something I said earlier. I mean, and I know it's cliche, but you have the power to create your own reality. You have the power to create your own life, to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish, to live the life of your dreams, no matter what that is, on what scale. Success is different for all people. So I'd say utilizing that free will and those keys to be intentional and create life on your terms, or take the blue pill and continue to react and be a victim of how life has I don't know how am I
so
trying to
look,
articulate
so we're gonna give them some type of trade off, right? So if I'm hearing where you're getting at, I'm going to make the red pill the free will, right? Or the blue pill is actually going to be all your decisions are made for you, but you have generational wealth.
Well, I don't want to say your decisions are made for you, because I think that everyone creates life. It's just a matter of if you're conscious of it or not. And it's all about energy. So if you're in this mind space of thinking that you are a victim to life and of your circumstances and how you were raised, then you don't realize that you are in this matrix, and you're waking up every day reacting to your boss or to your family or to the relationship that you're in, and you're just responding, as opposed to...
So that's blue pill.
That's the
remaining
blue pill.
in that matrix of being a victim of your reality.
Yes, and not
creating it.
Well,
what would be the
not
trade-off?
Understanding that you are creating it, but you're
Is that
not.
the blue?
That's the blue.
It was the red.
The red is the free will.
The red is being intentional. It's being unintentional and intentional,
Okay.
or conscious and unconscious.
So creating by default or creating intentionally.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
But I want some type of trade-off too, because I'm obviously gonna pick the red pill, right? It's like I don't think anybody is gonna pick the blue pill. What I mean by trade-off is, right, like, let's say a good example is like you go, not saying I love that example, I just want to find something that makes the decision difficult.
So what I'm trying to communicate is, if you're someone right now that can physically like articulate and outwardly say in a room full of people, I hate my job, I hate my boss, I'm not happy in the relationship that I'm in. Like, you literally have, you're a slave to, and you're reacting to life, as opposed to taking the red pill and knowing that if I'm not happy with my job, change it. And I have the ability to change it, as opposed to just waking up every day complaining, driving to work, yelling at everybody who's within your path, getting to work, being unhappy, being on social media, making negative comments, or just someone who's, to me, that's in the matrix. That's someone who's creating more of the same, but unconsciously not knowing that life is miserable because you're miserable.
Okay. I like that. So I'm gonna test people's ethics, or I'm gonna test people's character with this one, right? So with the blue pill is what you said, right? You are a victim and you're reactionary to your circumstances, to the people around you. But if you choose this pill, you have unlimited funds.
Yes, because and it's not just funds, it's the life of your dreams. Because what I want to communicate is people who are living a less than
I'm sorry. I just want to clarify what I think he's saying.
Okay.
He's saying you remain a victim, but if you choose this pill, you remain thinking like that. But
You get
your
unlimited
bank
funds.
account is like money's never a worry.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about
Money will never
money.
be a problem. Now everything else could still be relationships, all that, but money will never be a problem. But you still think how you think.
Yeah.
It's like money is unlimited.
I just want them to
account.
be. I just want there to
But
be a factor where they're like,
still-
"Ooh, do I
yeah.
take the money and
I
right?"
continue
And-
thinking how I think, or like he make the decision hard
Yeah,
for the person.
because the way where we at right now is like anybody
Of course I would
when we
choose to
hear
bring my
it,
reality, yeah.
of course we're gonna pick the red pill. So I want to test people's character. I want to see who really about the waking up part.
Okay,
When there's
okay.
you sacrificing unlimited funds too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So that blue pill is the you're a victim. You are in the matrix. You going through these reactions. You are dealing with everything that you mentioned, but you got unlimited funds. Your bank account, money is not an issue. Or you could take this red pill to where you have free will. You can design your own life. You are at peace mentally and spiritually.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
And there is the potential for generational wealth. It's not guaranteed,
Okay.
but there's the potential.
For unlimited funds.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take it.
We'll take
The
that.
point that I wanted to communicate was I don't want folks to think that those that are successful in their own right are the only people who create it intentionally. When you're not successful and not happy, you created that
And
just as much
you
as
created
you
that
created.
as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
Either way, you are the
Correct.
creator. Yes, I understand. I understand where you were going with that, and agree. Right? It's all about the mindset. It's all about the lens that you're looking at.
Correct. So
Yes.
either you can choose to create a life of abundance and happiness, or
Scarcity.
correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, we are. We here with it. We here with it. And, so now switching gears, I want to ask.
Wait, I gotta get mine.
Oh yeah. Let's,
I forgot it. Wait, okay, no, I had it. Okay. One pill. Okay, you either get everything you want immediately, but it comes with the good and the bad. So
Okay.
it's if I immediately think something negative, I immediately get it, or positive. Or it's a guaranteed wait time. Or you'll get everything that you want only, nothing negative. But there's a guaranteed 5-year process for it.
That's good.
But
Yeah,
you'll only
yeah.
ever get what you
That's
want.
tough, right?
Yeah.
That's tough because now you left with some people because of the
Yeah.
I want it right now. It's like I could maybe only think positive, right?
Maybe.
they're gonna try themselves.
Trying to do that.
That's a good one. So we got red pill is you can have everything you want, but it comes with a 5-year wait limit. And then the blue pill is you can have everything you want right now, but it's including, or you can have everything you think
Yes.
right now,
immediately. Yeah.
immediately, but it comes with the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
I'll choose the 5-year wait process.
What would you choosing?
process.
5 years.
The 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting it through. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm assuming for Reed's red pill, blue pill, you going with the red pill.
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Usually we don't say which pill we're gonna take because I don't want to sway the. I don't never say it because I don't want to sway the audience.
Okay.
But I just because we got two different ones.
Yeah.
I'm curious, right?
Don't use mine.
No,
Or whatever.
no, they was both good. It was just a little exercise we had to do for yours.
Pull it out. Yeah.
So if we walk out this building and you guys are headed back to Cali, right? And you walk past a spin image of the 18-year-old versions of yourselves, what would be some advice or information you would give to 18-year-old you?
So for me, and that kind of goes back to, why mindset is important and just my whole story and my journey. And I wouldn't, so if we can off camera a bit, my 18-year-old self was in the space of what I would tell my 18-year-old self right now, which is tomorrow isn't promised, and to live every day on purpose. That's all.
That's great. That's great advice.
But
Great
you're saying
advice.
you were doing that at that time.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it,
You
but
were doing
it,
that.
it
So it would be a reminder.
correct. Correct.
Can keep doing what you're doing and just remember that.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I don't know, because I wouldn't want to change the trajectory of wherever I was going in that moment. So I wouldn't want to. If you would have asked me this,
And keep in mind,
A
this
year
isn't
ago?
this isn't the 8. So you wouldn't be changing anything, right? Because
So
it's
you're
not
not talking
actually,
to your
you're not
18-year-old
talking to your
self.
actual
You're talking
18-year-old
to-
self. You're talking to somebody that reminds you of your 18-year-old self.
got you. Oh, okay. So I guess I would say just know that everything is going to work out, and everything is always working out for you. And with that knowing, you can move through life and you don't have to worry about anything. Like literally just trust your instincts and make every decision unapologetically. Like when you make a decision to do something, don't worry if it's going to be the wrong decision. Don't worry if it's the right decision. Just make the decision and just follow through 100%. And just know that it's going to work out. Like you don't have to worry about that. And that's it. Yeah.
I love both those answers. I think with both those answers, you are setting someone up to walk in their truth, walk with intentionality, on purpose, and to really embrace discovery, embrace failure, and everything that comes with it, and having that unwavering faith that it's going to work out. So that's great advice.
One last thing I want to bring up, and I know that we talked a lot about, planning and having a schedule. Outside of that, I want to communicate that when it comes to life, life isn't as hard or as complex as sometimes it seems. So letting go a lot and just kind of allowing, being intentional and being aligned before you leave the house or before you act. But as long as you're in that space, just moving through life and allowing it to happen and knowing that the decisions that you make are in alignment, that you're being guided or protected or you're covered by a higher power. So first of all, having that spirituality, and once you have that and you have that belief in that spirituality, that should help you kind of let go. Don't live life so hard and take everything so seriously. So there's not, just this whole list of things. It's just live, and that goes back to Eckhart Tolle's, The Power of Now. Live in the moment and be present and take each moment as it comes. So I also want to communicate.
Yeah, and be grateful for those moments too.
Definitely grateful.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times we're given blessings, and they don't show themselves as like everything you want when you want it. It's like sometimes a blessing comes, you'll get something that you asked for, but it was 5 years later, so you forgot you even asked for it. And then it hits you today, and you had the plan to do X, Y, Z, and then nope, the blessing comes. He's like, oh, and you got people that are upset about it, throwing off their schedule, like, why does this have to happen now? And I think that message was perfect for those people to just kind of be intentional, but still going with the flow.
Right.
And that's a challenge, right?
It is. It is.
You're saying have a plan, but go with the flow. Right. So that's going to be a learning curve for a lot of people that are watching this, and people who, you might know, just give them that advice to be able to live like water, just kind of flow.
Exactly.
Because water is pure, is very planned. It has its physical components, but it still is able to move and take the shape of anything that is placed into, move in a direction. But what you don't want it to do is not move, because then that's when it becomes stale, start breeding mosquitoes, and if you're in Georgia, you don't want that. So always be moving, always be growing, right? It's been a pleasure having y'all on the show. I would love for y'all to tell our audience not only where they can find you, of course, but anything special that y'all have coming up that you would like to share. I know y'all mentioned some of y'all premiums and like the program, the assessment we talked about, these things that make up for a great journey and a great experience for you guys as coaches too. Definitely share all of that.
I'm Life Coach K. You can find me on Instagram at Life Coach K.
I am Life Coach Ree. You can find us on our business IG page, which is ANU Coaching, or you can visit our website, which is anuucoaching.com. And on our website, you can find out more information about what we do. You could find out more information about who we are as coaches. We also offer a 30-day goal setting planner and journal. And lastly, we have a blog that you can all find on our website.
Mm-hmm. And the blog is called
Master Your Mindset.
Master Your Mind.
Is our blog.
I love the name. And so, again, like I said, I really appreciate y'all hopping on here and talking to our audience, giving them the mindset tips, the systems tips, having some real conversation about, managing our relationships, meeting and, forging new relationships. I really think that, boundaries and networking piece that we talked about is some game that our audience can really take home and start to build that network and that community, right? Because it's all about community. Yeah. And when we talk about community, I want to also thank you all for being a part of this special community as well, because you tune in, week out. I see y'all in the comments. I see y'all, on Instagram and the DMs, just recommending conversations and dialogue that you would like for me to have. And, really every part of the conversations and the guests that we have on the show is because of the feedback that you all provide. So I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the $1 Million Community. I'm your guy, Kai Speaks. You just heard from life coaches Kay and Ree, and we was talking about mindset systems, everything that you need to know right now to become a new you. See y'all in the next episode.